Hi, good evening, everyone. So, today's topic is all about how to sort of crack the SAT examination. Uh, so, I'm going to just talk about that. Before that, let me introduce myself. I am Shreya, and I'm the lead trainer of iSchool Prep. And I've been training students for a couple of years now, and mostly we all know that there are certain examinations that we will all have to take up when we have to fly abroad, we'll have to go abroad and study. So, one of the examinations that you will have to take up when you really intend to go abroad and study for your bachelor's, that's your undergrad programs, will be the SAT along with any other English language tests. Now, as we all know that the SAT examinations are more or less taken by students who are probably in their high school or in their 11th or 12th mainly. So therefore, these students have very, very limited time span to prepare for their SAT examinations, as well as there are ample of them who are idly also preparing for other examinations, Indian examinations, etc. So the time span that you have for your SAT preparation is very, very less. So we there are of course no shortcuts to crack the test, but if we actually go in a planned manner and if we prepare ourselves well, so probably you can definitely crack the test. Now, first and foremost thing before we get on to understanding how to crack the test, let's also understand that the SAT examination from a pencil paper format have now changed to a digital platform, digital format. From the March of this year, we have started the digital SAT, and we have a couple of students who have already taken up the test. Now, let's understand how the digital SAT is going to be useful to the students who will be taking up the test. So the digital SAT, first and foremost thing is going to be shorter as compared to the pen and paper that we probably had before. So the pencil and the paper test that we had before was ideally a very longer test as compared to the pen and that compared to the digital SAT that we have. It's very short. It's only 2 hours 14 minutes test. Ideally, in the previous pen and paper test that we had four different sections where the English part of the story used to be bifurcated into two halves, which used to be called as reading and writing as a separate entity. And then we had a maths, which was again bifurcated into maths calculator and maths no calculator. But the digital SAT will have four modules, let's say, but ideally there will be only two sections, which is reading and writing, which will have two modules, and there will be a math section which will again have two modules. So as the test starts, we are going to have the reading and the writing first module, then we will have the reading and the writing second module, after which you'll have a break of 10 minutes and then continued with maths module 1, maths module 2. So that is how the test is going to be. In case of the first module, we are going to have a near about around more or less we are going to have around 27 questions that you will need to finish in a span of 32 minutes. Again, module 2 also has 27 questions to be solved in a span of 32 minutes. In case of maths, we will have around 22 questions to be solved in a span of 35 minutes. Again, module 2, same way, 22 questions, 35 minutes. So this is the tests have become a little shorter. The modules have become shorter. That is the first thing. The second thing is the digital SAT. You since it's the name suggests digital, so you can take it up on a system, on a computer, laptop, etc. So you can carry your own device. That means you can carry your laptop or you can carry your iPad, and you can take it up on a tablet. So you can carry your own device to the system, I mean to the center, and you can take up the test. So there is an app that you'll have to download, which is called as Blue Book. which has to be downloaded a day prior of your test, and you can carry the device there. There's a code which is given to you to start the test. So that is the first half which has changed. The second thing is, of course, the matter or the content that we had for the previous SAT, that has not changed. So we have a similar kinds of questions and similar topics that were asked in the pen and paper is also asked right now. But probably what has changed at this point of time for the English bit would be that you will have shorter passages. So previously we used to have around 4 or 5 paragraphs for which we had a couple of questions. At this point of time, you are ideally going to have a near about 27 passages, and individual passage will have one question only. So we do not have longer passages, we have very short paragraphs, and for every paragraph there is one question. So for all 27 questions, you will have 27 paragraphs which are given, but they are all shorter paragraphs. You do not have to read longer paragraphs any longer. The second best part is that for both the math sections, you are allowed to use a calculator. So previously, we had one section where we could use, the other section we could not use. So you have an on-screen calculator that you can use, which is graphical. So you will be able to use them for both the modules. That is the second change. And the other ones are that you, of course, will be getting your results real fast. Previously, the SAT results used to be coming mostly, it used to take weeks together, mostly 2 weeks or 20 days. But right now, you will probably get it in days. So, 8 to 10 working days, you might just get your results. So, you get it very fast. And finally, of course, what we have is something where you can highlight certain paragraphs if you want to highlight them. Like, as we all know that pencil and paper test, we could underline the paragraphs, we could underline the words. So a lot of students feel that, oh, in the digital paper we'll not be able to highlight anything, then it's going to be difficult because we cannot concentrate. But that is not the case. You have an option of highlighting the keywords that you want. So you can use a highlighter, as well as you also can flag a question and come back later, of course, in the time span for that particular module. So you have a time span. For example, in case of reading and writing, you are given a time limit of 32 minutes for a particular module. If you feel that, oh, the 15th question I am not so comfortable, oh, they are inference questions, I am not so comfortable, so ideal scenario, you are supposed to flag it, mark it, and ideally go ahead, finish off the others, and then come back to that particular question. And you can do it. So that might work on your advantage while you're taking the test, because more or less we have several different types of questions. So probably you might be good at one, you may not be good at the other. So you have the option of skipping the question for then and coming back to it later. So that is another advantage probably that you have. So more or less, the test has been changed in this manner. Ideally, the SATs are going to be taking place in the months of August, October, November, December, March, May, and June. So these are ideally the months where you can take up the test. Okay, there are fixed days, there are fixed days where basically you can take up the test, and you cannot sort of choose your own. Let's see if at all there are any questions. If you have any questions. Okay, great. Uh, so, a very common question that a lot of students would be asking would be, is the essay section mandatory or not? So, just a good news for all you guys who are asking me that is the essay section mandatory. Let me tell you that we do not have essay for the digital SAT. So, just to be happy about it, we do not have any essay section on the test. So we just have reading and writing and math section, so you do not have to worry about the essay section. There is nothing absolutely as such. They have removed the essay section from the test. Another question that more or less students a couple of times ask is how much is it score? Because if the test has become shorter, then is it that we are ideally going to be scored on a different scale? Absolutely not. You are scored on the similar scale. Ideally, you have four modules. So two modules, that is reading and writing, will be scored together in a range of 200 to 800, whereas maths, you have two modules, which is again scored in a range of 200 to 800 ideally. That's the range. Now, out of both of them, you get a score out of 800. They both are added up together to give you a score out of 1600. So, what is the total score that we can get for reading and writing? It's out of 800. What is the total score that we can get out in maths? Is out of 800. So, the total added up score would be in a range of 400 to 1600. And now, of course, a lot of times students ask, what is an ideal score that I'm expecting? More or less, it depends on the university that you're applying, but you should be targeting higher. So if it's out of 1600, your score should be something above 1300. That's something that you should be trying. So figure out which area, which aspect you are good at. See whether you're good at maths or you're good at reading, and accordingly you sort of can decide which one you're good at, and you can sort of check your scores. Now, uh, yes. So another very common question is, can I take the test? Can I take the SAT more than once? Of course, there's no restriction on the number of tests, the number of times that you take the SAT examinations. You can, of course, opt for the test more than once, definitely. But ideally, as per your official website, that's College Board, they do not prefer students taking up the test more than two times. And that's what I also would suggest, that each and every time you take up the SAT examination, you are paying an amount. So unnecessarily, until and unless you are prepared, you should not go ahead and take the test just because you want to just go and check what level the questions are. We have ample tests, we have ample mocks available. Please take that test, and whenever you see that okay, now you're consistent with your scores, you should go ahead and opt for the test, such that you do not have to take up the test multiple times. Now, is there a harm? I want to take it up three times. Is there a harm taking it up? No, no, not at all. You can take it up as many times as you want, but ideally remember that the universities might feel that you are taking up chance. You're taking a chance by, taking the test multiple times. You are taking a chance every time, and you're not serious about it. So ideally, if I take up the SAT examination five times, I scored probably 1300 after the fifth attempt, and a student who probably scores a 1400 in the first or the second attempt, of course he is much more serious. So that is how it is seen. So therefore, of course, you can take up the test more than once, but ideally restrict yourself to two times, if required a third time, but you can take it up more than once, of course. Sorry. uh, Next is, of course, when it is a digital SAT, a lot of students feel that probably the test is somewhat different, and I really have to prepare myself well because I don't know what's the content of the test. So ideally, again, I want to sort of mention that there is no change in the matter. The placement of the questions might have changed. Now here I had a long passage for which I gave you 10 questions. Now I give you 10 questions, 10 different paragraphs. So therefore, the type of questions have not changed. What has ideally changed is the way they are presenting it. That's all. So you still have word in context questions, you still have inference questions, you still have purpose questions. All the types of questions are still there. Uh, but how should you then start preparing? Mostly as and when you've decided that you want to fly abroad, whether you have just started your 11th or you have probably completed 10th and you're awaiting your results, whatever the scenario is, as and when you have decided you want to fly abroad for your bachelor's program or the undergrad program, please start preparing for the SAT slowly and steadily. So ideally, it is stated that we need near about 150 plus or more hours to crack the SAT. So therefore, if I say that you have 1 month, you need 5 hours per day mostly. You should be preparing 5 hours. Suppose you're taking the December SAT, guys who are taking up the December SAT, you should be preparing at least 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours per day. And how should you start? First, start with your basics, probably. That means, though a good question is that we don't have vocabulary too much, we don't have completion questions, no fill in the blank questions. So, still, do we learn words? Of course, yes. Okay. Now, why do we learn words and how do we start preparing for the words? Is that, of course, start by reading certain small paragraphs. It could be blogs, it could be articles relevant to different kind of topics, probably related to something on sculpture, painting, science, literature, whatever it is. You can take up small paragraphs and just start reading them. You can pick up books, novels, anything, but just pick up some small paragraphs and just start reading them. From every paragraph, from every passage, you might have some words that you are not very sure of. Take them down. You can go to dictionary and figure out their meaning, as well as there are ample vocabulary lists which are available. You can start studying them. So the basics have to be started first, whether it is for English, which is reading and vocabulary probably, and then for maths, you can just start with the basic numbers, etc., which will help you to crack the examinations. The secondary thing is that each and every day, whatever work you have, probably you would want to sort of devote a particular time of the day. So you have probably 2 months, 3 months, you have adequate time. You are taking up the test in March. So probably that time you can sort of give yourself 1 hour or 1.5 hours per day. But that time should be devoted every day basis. Have a timetable set and then start preparing. But you cannot crack the test without preparing yourself well. As I already mentioned, 150 plus hours would be ideal for you to crack the test, and you should be having and you should be preparing yourself in that manner. uh, okay, so I think more or less another question that I feel a lot of students ask is, uh, do the colleges still require the SAT examination? I would want to say that SAT is an aptitude test, and more or less it adds on to your profile. So even if you feel that the universities are not wanting the SAT, though right now a lot of universities definitely want the SAT scores, but ideally, it is a good to take the test, since you do not know which university would require. And SAT, as I already mentioned, that it will add on to your profile. So therefore, it is a good idea for you to take up the test, whether the university requires it or not. Okay. Any other questions that we probably would have? Okay. I think the last question that I would want to sort of talk about is, of course, a very good question, and probably a lot of students ask this question, is that when we are going for an undergrad program, we can either take up the SAT examination or we can take up the ACT examination, that is American College Testing, and the SAT examination. SAT, which one should I take up? Whether I take up SAT or ACT? First and foremost thing is, uh, it depends, because SAT is widely accepted in worldwide, whereas ACT will have some restrictions. It may not be accepted by all the universities across the globe. So if you are looking into keeping your options open for multiple countries, you would want to opt for the SAT examination. Other differences between the SAT and the ACT is SAT is ideally an adaptive test. So, as I already mentioned, that you have four modules, and every module, that means the first module of reading and writing, will sort of adapt itself in the second module. That means if you have answered all the questions very well in the first module, the second module will be a slightly higher one. If you have not answered it so well, it might move down. Similar case, it happens for maths as well. So SAT is right now an adaptive test, whereas ACT is not an adaptive test at this point of time. SAT examination is currently digital, whereas ACT is still a pencil and a paper test. But from December of this month, ACT is also going online. But till now, we have ACT as a pencil and paper test. Uh, Digital SAT is slightly shorter. It's 2 hours 14 minutes, whereas ACT is only 2 hours. It's 2 hours 55 minutes, near about 3 hours. In case of the number of sections that we have, in case of digital SAT, we only have to deal with reading, writing, and maths. Whereas in case of ACT, we have four sections where we have reading, we have English, we have maths, as well as we have one additional subject which is called as science. So we also have science as a section. So if you feel that you're not so great with science, you might just want to take up the digital SAT. Okay. In case of the scoring, digital SAT is out of 1600, whereas ACT is scored out of 36. So more or less, if you have to choose between SAT and ACT, you will have to check that if you want to keep your options for multiple countries, then you will definitely want to take up the SAT examination. If at all you're very good with science and you want to showcase your skills for science, then you definitely want to take up the ACT examination, because ACT has the science module, whereas SAT does not have it. Okay. So these are the major differences between ACT and SAT. So if you want to sort of decide between the two, you can decide on these aspects that I've just mentioned. Okay. So I think if there are no questions, I will just sort of end my talk. Thank you very much for joining, and all the best for your SAT examination. Thank you.